Just for a moment I stood there in silence, stunned by the foul evil deed I had done. Many thoughts raced through my mind as I stood there. I had but one chance, and that was to run. Out through the back door of roses I ran, out where the horses were tied. I caught a good one, it looked like it could run. Up on its back and away I did ride, just as fast as I could from the West Texas town of El Paso out to the Badlands of New Mexico. Back in El Paso, my life would be worthless. Everything's done in life, nothing is left. It's been so long since I've seen the young babe. My love is stronger than my fear of death. I saddle up and away I can go. Well, hello everybody. We'd like to thank you for attending our presentation and welcome to Siedel's webinar on timeliness. We are excited to present to you today from two locations in Iowa and California. And I'm joined today by my co-hosts and FSDA extraordinaires, Shauna Brown, Mallory DeMay, Jerry Ford, Diana Havens, and Ryan Thomas. Thank you for being here. We plan on covering several important topics, and we'll have a short trivia session and question and answer period at the end of the presentation. And now, without further ado, we present Time Flies, But You're the Pilot. We'd like to begin with a brief history of communication, just to kind of set the stage. And so, on April 3rd, in 1859, the Pony Express reduced the amount of time that it took to send a message from the Atlantic to the Pacific coast to about 10 days. It was about 1,900 miles from St. Joseph, Missouri to Sacramento, California. And in 48 hours, the Pony Express could get a message from Missouri to Colorado or from Sacramento to Las Vegas. Now, 48 hours, as you all know, is the time that an instructor has to respond to a student, according to the course requirements. Now, here's some fun facts. The Pony Express was only in operation for about 18 months between 1860 and October of 1861. William Cody, aka Buffalo Bill, was a rider at age 14 for the Pony Express. And one of the fastest Pony Express trips was the news of Lincoln's inaugural address, which was delivered in about 7 days. Next, an invention that effectively put the Pony Express out of business, the telegraph, was developed. It was developed in the 1830s and 1840s by Samuel Morse. The first message was sent in 1844 from Washington to Baltimore, and that message was, "What hath God wrought?" By 1861, Western Union had laid the first transcontinental telegraph line, and by 1866, the first telegraph line had been laid across the Atlantic, connecting the USA to Europe. Now, as you know, the telegraph revolutionized communication, war, journalism, and even economics, as money could now be wired. And just a little snippet, yet that was Morse code for, "Hello, professor, I need help with my paper." Next came the telephone, another disruptive invention. It was built in 1876 by Alexander Graham Bell and patented. And what were his first words? On March 10th, Bell said, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." Now, what would you have said? In 1915, the first coast-to-coast long-distance telephone call from New York City to San Francisco was made. And then in 1956, the first fully automated mobile car system is launched in Sweden. By 1973, the first handheld mobile phone call was made. And then IBM released the Simon personal communicator in 1994. A year later, the term smartphone appeared in print. Then in 2007, what did we get? Anybody? Anybody? Tumbleweeds and crickets? Very good. Jason Bell, you're our winner. That's right. In 2007, we got the iPhone. It was available in a 4 gigabyte or 8 gigabyte model. Now, of course, we know that this revolutionized communication even further with the popularization of mobile apps. So why are we even discussing communication in the first place? Well, there's this notion that retention matters. And most students have grown up in the communication age of the cell phone, meaning a lot of our students don't even remember what a rotary phone looks like. And so when it comes to retention, we know that communication over appropriate modern devices is important. We want to make sure that we're meeting students where they are and where they expect us to be as a business and a university. Now, I'd like to introduce one of my co-hosts, Shauna Brown, who will discuss our survey results and give us some statistics and analysis. Shauna, let me turn control over to you.
Thank you so much, Jason. All right. There we go. So earlier this year, we sent out a survey to all of our faculty asking them how quickly they responded to student emails. We had a really great response rate of 989, which is 40% of our faculty. As you can see here on the graph, we found that most instructors usually respond within 12 to 24 hours or less. Ashford requires all student communication to be responded to within 48 hours. However, if an instructor took this full amount of time, there could be frustration from the student. For example, if a student emails a question on Friday night about their assignment that is due on Monday, and the instructor waits until Sunday night to respond, that only gives the student 24 hours to do the work before the assignment is due. We also asked faculty how quickly they finish grading assignments and provide students with their feedback. When looking at this data, you can see that many of the instructors responded within 3 to 4 days. Some took a little longer, some a little bit quicker. We require that instructors complete their grading no later than 6 days after a student's due date, which is the following Sunday. This means that a student will receive feedback on the previous week's assignment the day before the new assignment is due. So is this enough time for the students to implement the instructor's feedback for the current week's assignment? Our final survey question provided us with insight to what technology a faculty uses. We cross-referenced the technology against how quickly an instructor said they responded to students. The data showed that the instructors that were responding in less than 4 hours and in less than 12 hours were either using the Canvas app or the Outlook app. If an instructor was only relying on their laptop, they generally took longer to respond. Now, let's take a look at what our students are saying. The Director of Institutional Effectiveness told us that when they surveyed students' customer experience, 2 of the top 4 complaints were timely instructor feedback and quality feedback. We also found that within the last 8 months, 47% of incoming student requests were when a student was not able to reach their instructor in time and needed staff to step in to help facilitate the communication. A third place we reviewed was the end of course survey. 12% of students said their instructor did not provide feedback in a timely manner. So, In a world where information and answers are available at a moment's notice, and our classes are over in a blink of an eye, how do we close this gap to ensure all of our students feel supported? Ryan, you're up next.
Thanks, Shauna. Okay, so the requirements for posting grades are listed within the classroom, but they're buried at the bottom of the faculty expectations module. For students to figure out exactly when they're going to get their paper back, they'd have to do a complex mathematical equation that requires time to figure out specifically when that's going to be. I like to simplify things as much as possible for my students by simply stating that they can expect to see their discussion forum grades by Friday morning, and they can expect to see their written assignment and journal grades no later than Monday morning. I include this information in my required discussion forum late policy announcement. I find this information is useful. Undergraduate students can transfer in up to 90 transfer credits. So even if you aren't teaching an entry point course, you could have students in your class that are new to the university and confused by this policy. Moving on to instructor response time, this is something that's also included in the modules within the classroom. But as we know in our learning, waiting 48 hours for a response is just way too long. I like to set the expectation early on in my class for when my students can expect to hear back from me. Early on in my announcements, I include information about my life and when I plan on participating in the class. I explain that I work a regular 40-hour-a-week job, so if they contact me during the daytime hours and don't get a response right away, it's because I'm at work, but they can expect to have follow-up from me later on in the evening. I feel that most students are comfortable waiting if they have a clear expectation of when they're going to get follow-up. That's it for me. Up next is Mallory DeMay to talk about time management.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. All right. Okay. So time management is crucial when you're teaching a course online. We kind of all know that. Since the online courses move so quickly, that means that we do have quick turnarounds for our specific deadlines. So the best thing you can do is to have a plan and strategies in place in order to meet the deadlines. So what I'm going to talk about today is we're going to talk about just the importance of time management, and then I'm going to introduce just some strategies to help with our quick turnaround for deadlines. So you may be asking, why is time management so important? And you know, what's the big deal if your grades are a little late, or maybe wait until Monday to respond in the discussions? So when thinking about time management, you want to think about your students. They rely on that timely grades and feedback for their success, especially in cases when assignments coincide with each other. So like if you have assignments that are kind of just going back to back and they do kind of integrate together, that's when the timeliness of your feedback is going to be even more valuable. So they need that feedback in order to move on to the next week. So when you are grading or participating in the class, really think about your feedback and how timeliness will impact your students. And then the next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about our first strategy, which is scheduling your day. So one strategy that is extremely effective in creating a schedule for yourself. So in your schedule, you want to, when I was an instructor, I kind of always thought about, I would include like my personal time, my work time, and then like family time, just kind of, all those different things that impact your day. So once you have your schedule, you want to look at gaps in your schedule and pencil in times when you can work on your class. So consider the time of day that would be most effective. So like many instructors are probably going to kind of focus on nighttime, their kids are in bed, they have a little more time to focus. So the main point is you really want to find a schedule that's going to work for you and your schedule. Then our next, the next strategy that we're going to talk about is being consistent. So consistency is super important in the online classroom just because the classes move so quickly. So the consistency is going to help you to establish a presence in the classroom and develop that trust with your students. And it's also going to allow you to break up your workload and get things done on time or earlier. So one example regarding grading is the discussions. So we know that, the discussions wrap up on Monday. So when I teach, I try to go ahead and get started on my grading maybe on Tuesday, and then I just kind of do a little bit throughout the week till I hit that Thursday deadline. So that's just kind of one example. So you can just be consistent, having a consistent schedule week after week. And then the last strategy I want to talk about is starting early. So another thing with this is getting a head start on your grading and your classroom discussion. So for example, when students post early in the discussions, you can start your responses early and then continue posting throughout the week. Also for grading, you can get a head start on those early birds as their posts and papers are coming in. Go ahead and start on grading those assignments just to ensure that you're meeting your deadlines, and the students will appreciate those timely grades and feedback as well. And that's all I have for my portion. So now I'm going to hand it over to Diana Havens and Jerry Ford, and they're going to talk more about technology.
Hi, everybody. Let's get started on the next section. So technology, we're talking about how you can use Canvas. And pardon me while I see these tiny little arrows to advance the slide. So I know Canvas is not a new thing for you, but I just want to remind you about the notifications and how you can use them to benefit you to respond to your students. So as you know, in Canvas, students can send you messages through the Canvas inbox. They can respond to a submission comment, which means that if they have an assignment, like the written assignments, they can actually send you a message on that submission, whether or not they've already submitted an assignment or not. They can post to the Ask Your Instructor forum, and they can reply to any announcements that are open for replies. So you can control how you get notifications on these things. You go to your notification preferences, which is located in your account settings. And you'll look for conversations, that's your inbox. You can look for submission comments, and you can kind of see right here I have all submissions, and then you can highlight for a submission comment. So you get an email to your faculty account that you have a submission comment, and that you get a conversation sent to you. Now announcements, you can also have it set up so that you get an email when someone responds on an announcement that's open, or you can close your announcements so that students can't respond to you there. And for discussions, it's a little trickier for the Ask Your Instructor discussion board, because Canvas doesn't differentiate between our Ask Your Instructor discussion board and then your regular discussion boards. So just a little FYI, if you turn on notifications for all discussion boards, you're going to get everything. So my opinion and my experience is for the Ask Your Instructor discussion board, you just have to get into the habit of checking it when you log on. You're supposed to check in your classroom every 48 hours anyway. So just make sure you're going in there and seeing if students are posting there. I do find that students pretty much send a lot of your messages to your inbox, but it's still a good idea to check because it's still in your requirements that you check that for them. But now I believe, Jerry, you are going to talk about smartphones.
Howdy, y'all. Thanks, Diana, for sharing those great tips on how to use our classroom technology to help us keep up with all those various ways that students might contact us. Let's take a quick look at another great use of communications technology. Earlier in our presentation, Shauna briefly mentioned communication technology in the form of desktop or laptop computers as well as cell phones. And as you know, cell phones have evolved into smartphones. Smartphones allow us to be smarter about how we can respond to student inquiries more quickly. One question that you might be wondering is, how can I get my faculty email on my smartphone? So I'd like to draw your attention over to the chat box. My colleague Ryan, I see, has posted a link there. It's up a few now. It's up about 4. But if you look for Ryan Thomas in the chat box, you'll see he's posted a link there. And you can copy and paste that and put it into your browser if you'd like to do this yourself. Otherwise, we have it on the slides and you can just follow along. But that hyperlink that he's posted in the chat box will take you to what's called our CETL FAQ knowledge base, and we call it Ask CETL. If you're not familiar with it, this knowledge base has over 200 of the most popular faculty questions and answers. You know, once you're in Ask CETL, you can type in keywords such as smart, smartphone, Outlook, app. Any of these keywords will navigate you to this particular FAQ here that you see on our slide, which is, how can I get my faculty email on my smartphone? So, you know, after our webinar, if you want to go back to these resources, this is how you would do it. So the information here in our FAQ tells us that there's a Microsoft Outlook app for either your Apple phone or your Android-based smartphone. And there's a link in the FAQ. If you click on that link, it will take you right to Microsoft's help site. So let's go to the next slide. Once you're on the Microsoft site, simply choose the box for either Android or iOS, and it will walk you through the process. It will show you how to get the Outlook app downloaded to your smartphone. It will walk you through the settings that you need to have, and then you'll come to your organization's login screen. So let's go to the next slide. And so this is the Ashford login screen, and here you can simply type in your faculty email address and your password, and voila, you will now be able to read and respond to emails while you're on the go and not be tied to your computer that's in your office or at your house. Remember, a quicker response allows students to get the answers and feedback that they need so they can move on to the next assignment. If you have any questions about this, you can always contact Diana or myself after our webinar for additional assistance. And now we know one more way that we can use technology to be timely. Let's go ahead and turn it back over to Diana for some more exciting technology tips.
Thank you, Jerry. So another great piece of technology that you can use is actually the Canvas mobile app provided by Instructure, the makers of Canvas, and you can get that in your mobile app store. It's on iOS and Android. Here is kind of a screenshot of what a classroom menu will look like. You can post announcements, you can check on pages, you can respond to discussions, you can grade discussions, you can contact students, and what I find to be really helpful is that you have access to Civitas, Inspire for Faculty, right inside the mobile app. You can access the intervention library, and then you can click on the Civitas IFF link, and this engagement overview allows you to, if you're on the go and you just want to peek in and see how your class is doing, and maybe reach out to a few students. It only takes a few seconds, especially just if you use the intervention library. You can copy and paste, you can copy one of those templates and then you can post it into your email to your students. And this is something, if you're at a doctor's office, waiting for an appointment, that you can just kind of, engage with your students in a short amount of time. But I would recommend that you download this app and at least check it out, because there are a few things you can do. And you also, you can use your inbox there, and so you can kind of keep in touch with your students. But that's all for me. I'm going to hand it back over to Jason.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate everybody. And let's go ahead and talk a little bit now about the institutional quality review. So everybody knows the IQR, and essentially, how does timeliness fit into the IQR? Well, that's a mighty good question. The peer review is based upon 5 different performance standards, which include critical thinking, instructive feedback, high expectations, establishing relationships, and instructor expertise. But realistically, in the IQR, when conducting a review, it's kind of difficult to see if an instructor is being extremely timely or not. So the real truth is, how does timeliness relate to the IQR? It doesn't. This is something that we just kind of expect all of our instructors to do as representatives of the university, to further our retention efforts and just build the type of student relationship that'll promote the university and, make everybody feel at home here. So while this doesn't really reflect on you in the performance metrics, it really does reflect on the university as a whole. And, one of these days we want our students to go to their family and their friends and say, hey, I had a great experience at Ashford. They were all very responsive. I got my questions answered quickly whenever I had trouble, and I got through the curriculum, graduated, and now I recommend that you do the same. So I just want to address something really quickly, because there's a good question in the chat box about the end of course survey. Now, keep in mind, the end of course survey is different. That is the student-centered survey. In addition to the IQR, there's also the FSDA metric, which ensures that grades and feedback are posted in a timely fashion. So, yeah, being timely will reflect in the other surveys and the other metrics, but not in the IQR. So now we'll get to trivia. So get your fingers ready, right on the keyboard. First one to answer the question wins. What were the first words sent across the telegraph? Woo! Oh, Justin Murray, we have a winner with a quick draw. Wow. Okay. Next question. What Little Rascals character is frustrated by instructor response times? Woo! Look at that. Mr. Jason Bell. Lightning fast. We get the quick draw award. Okay. And finally, who should you contact for help with installing mobile apps? Ooh, bunch of answers. Seedle is a good one, but you can contact your FSDA at any time. We'll either direct you to the appropriate support materials or take the time to work through the issues with you to make sure that you're able to install apps to be timely. Now, let's just do a quick roundup of everything that we talked about. Students and society in general do expect fast response times. It's the world that we live in. Think about this. In business communication, you would expect a response to one of your emails within 4 to 8 hours. 24 hours is a long time. 48 hours, the time it takes to get a message from Sacramento to Las Vegas on a pony, is way too long. The lack of timeliness is one of the main complaints from students. Instructors that utilize mobile technologies do perceive that they have faster response times. The course requirements are somewhat inadequate for a good student experience, and although they have their place, the faster you can be, the better. Time management is essential to being timely, and the FSDA team can help with installing and configuring tech tools. Well, everybody, thanks very much for sitting in on this presentation. On behalf of myself and everybody on the Timeliness team, we'd like to thank you very much for being here. This will be recorded, or I'm sorry, this is being recorded. The recording will be released if you'd like to review it. We'll also make the slide deck available. And at this time, we'll like to go ahead and open it up for some questions. If you have any, please feel free to put them in the question and answer box or in the chat. Well, since it looks like we're not getting too many questions in, I'd like to bid you all farewell. Thanks very much for attending.